one and all, big and small, and welcome to the surprise episode of the 5th Trooper podcast. I'm Owen, and I'm accompanied by... Wait a second, where's Isaac?
Isaac's been temporarily relieved of duty so that he can go play Crucible. He was down there playing with Mike, and they did very well. I'm sure that they're going to be talking about it on the respective casts, but it sounds like they had a great time. But anyway, I'm here. What's up?
Yeah, we've got Evan here with us today doing Evan, this. As he pointed out, all of the most of the 5th Trooper is down at Crucible except for us. So we're holding down the fort and making sure that everything was running correctly. And this is why someone has to be holding down the fort, because as everyone was down there, we got brand new news coming out of AMG about Tour of Duties coming into Star Wars Legion. So this is going to be the cast. We're going to break down kind of what these are and give you some hot takes about Fluttercraft in this new format.
Don't worry. It's coming.
It's coming. But before we dive into any of that, just want to give a quick shout out to our Patreon. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thank you. This is all because of you, so we appreciate it. So if you want to support what we're doing here, you can always help us out by going over to patreon.com/the5thtrooper, and you can join in. Evan's got a bunch of fun stuff for you, so you can get all the exclusive content and all of the content that we're already giving you. So please stop by and say hi.
And we got more coming, believe me. And there's even an announcement connected to that right at the end of this show. That's what they call a teaser.
Yeah, we got them teasers in here
in the
too.
Industry. You know, as you well know, I'm a part of the media industry at this point.
Yeah,
because I host a podcast about Star Wars toys.
We are part of the media now, 100%. We're covering news as it happens, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Tours of Duty here, and we're going to explain what they are, and we're going to make sure that you know, if you saw the headlines but you're not quite sure what's going on here, we'll fill you in on the gaps and give you some of the hot takes fresh from the 5th Trooper here, talking about these Tours of Duty. They are the first narrative campaigns coming into Star Wars Legion, and so that's very exciting. There's a campaign for each of the main factions. Sorry, Shadow Collective. I apologize.
We'll talk about that. It's yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so sorry to them, but all of the main factions have one of these, and it's pretty much just a nice little story arc for you to be able to build an army, kind of build it up throughout multiple games that you play with your friends and your people at your store, and it will all culminate into your climactic turning point missions, which is new missions, but have also a bunch of added stuff into it that are specific to those missions themselves. So I don't think we're going to be seeing those inside of any sort of official tournament play or anything like that, but it is very cool that we are getting that for stuff to do at home, and I'm very excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, just because it gives this kind of like fresh air and fresh list building to people, and so it's very cool. Evan, first reactions before we dive too deep in, what are you feeling about this?
Well, I think that we've sort of known that this was coming because the Wills hinted at it in prior interviews. I think that so much has happened since whatever time it was that they hinted at it that many of us have sort of filed it into the back of our brain, and they even said that they were planning to launch it close to the starters, but I can speak for myself to say that I wasn't thinking that hard about it at that moment, and then the news just like kind of came out, and this is actually really important, in my opinion, for the game getting off on the right foot with the re-release of starters. There are a whole lot of players where this is actually like the only form of Legion that they would ever want to mess around with. And there's a lot of players like me who are usually doing sort of the standard game night / competitive scene, but who are at least campaign curious, I would say. And the key to that is just having something that works. And so for the older folks that are listening that may have been into some of the Space Minis games, there were a couple of campaigns, one of which was fan-made and the other one of which was official. For X-Wing, there was Heroes of the Artillery Cluster, which involved this neat kind of mechanic where there was like an automated way for like NPC fighters to fly around. And then there was in Armada, the Corellian conflict, which is a little bit closer to this. And the idea of that is that you are just fighting back and forth over various systems and trying to gain control of a big part of the galaxy. And so this is a little bit different from each of those, but I'm mentioning those because those were forms of those games that brought new people into it, and also like further engaged folks who were more casual players of those games to participate in them more. So I think it's really important that they did this, and even more importantly, like we'll get to this, but I think that they developed a really, really solid exoskeleton around which this is built. And you know, so I'll be excited to start talking about what that actually looks like with you now.
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely a thing. I agree wholeheartedly with you where this is extremely important to get people to play, to come into the stores and play the game, especially when they just picked up the starter boxes. You can play this with those starter boxes, so they automatically have something. And I think for the enfranchised players that already have large amounts of minis and everything like that, this is a thing that's like, hey, I want to do this, and so now I'm going to do this with all of the new people that are picking up the other stuff, and this gives us a good meeting point to just be like, hey, all right, like let's play this fun narrative thing. And I think, as you know, like let's dive into it, as you said. Let's get into a bit more, because there's just so much here. So you're going to, when you want to do one of these tours of duty, you're going to make a register. And so those registers all will have what your story arc is. There's a story arc for each faction, which is root out corruption for CIS. The GAR have a peacekeeping mission. You know that the Empire has bring peace to the galaxy, and then liberate the systems is for the rebels. And so all of these, there's like a story that kind of goes along with what you're doing. So it kind of gives you that narrative idea of what your faction is specifically up to.
And it's a broad outline of a story, right? Because that way you can sort of add meat to it between you and whoever you're playing with as you wish to. Yeah, like one for each faction. It is interesting that they each have a faction symbol, but that they don't point out the faction symbol as like a part of the story arc. And then there's another piece of the document that talks about when you finish a story arc, you might want to switch to a new one. Obviously, because this is not a competitive thing where everybody around the world that's playing this game needs to follow the same rules, like there's going to be a certain amount of decision making that is just going to be between you and whoever you're playing this campaign with. I haven't seen so far a reason why people couldn't switch between the various faction story arcs, like why you couldn't play the Empire one as Republic. There might be something that I'm missing, but we just wanted to mention that up front. Right now, there's 4 to start out with, right?
Yes, there's 4 to start out with, and to be clear, is to start out with. I do know that it has been hinted at that there is more coming.
They're going to make more. This is super clear.
Yeah. So this is just what we're starting out with right now. There is more on the way. So even if you play through all 4 of these with your, just your army and your faction, you can easily then find the new ones and things like that. So don't fret. There's definitely more stuff coming, which I think is very cool. And as you pointed out, to the swapping things in and out, since this is casual, you can, those are suggestions. The symbols are suggestions, as are that each of those arcs come with a thing that are called agendas, which is basically like your progress that you're keeping track of while you're playing your games, your normal games. And they all have ones that these are the agendas for like this story arc, but I'm pretty sure that you will see in the future, after people have done this once or twice, that people would be like, all right, so that's fun, but I want to pick that agenda and that agenda from over here, and then the agenda from a different story arc, and then just kind of customize their own campaign.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, there aren't going to be any cops about this, right? The utility of the document is to give you a starting framework, and I think that most people will try to keep to it relatively strictly. I think that when I run this for the first time, I'm going to be keeping the agendas aligned with their appropriate story arc, just because I'm putting faith in the fact that the designers like paired those things for a reason. But I guess to sort of flesh out the concept of what a register is, because the term register, I feel like it probably has some kind of a military meaning that those of us who may not be super familiar with those, like, a register is either something you put cash in or something that you're like keeping track of names in. It's more of the latter. And basically what it is another way to describe it is that, you know, if you're playing, you know, many of the video game RPGs out there, or if you're playing like any video game where you have a list of available units or people or whatever to roll out to a mission with, but that it doesn't let you pick all of them at the same time, right? And so a register is a list of what is available to your army, and then any individual mission, including the turning point missions, which we'll get to, is that you are going to decide on what elements of that register you're going to carry forward into the mission. And there's other ways to modify it that we'll talk about here, but that's basically what it is. It's like the list of everything that is actually currently and permanently available to you to take out on missions.
Yeah, and when you build your register at first, a lot of your cores and some of your other units are able to add some upgrades, and even if you don't bring them, you should probably put that into your register, because as you pointed out, you may not be bringing them in your list, but you want to have access to them.
Right.
In general, that maybe there's going to be a mission later that you want to have the 5th trooper inside of your core group, or, you know, something of that, or a heavy or something of that nature. And so you're going to put that in your register, and that's really good. The register is also going to be where you have your Paragon, who's like the hero of your story, and the Paragon has to be a non-named character. And so it truly is like, this is a perfect spot for the customs, because this is where you're going to put them.
Very good timing on their part, for sure.
Great timing there. This is where you're going to put your customs, and that will be the leader for your list is going to be this non-named person that is going to then be the main character of your story. So that'll also be as part of your register, not just the core troopers and upgrades and whatnot. Is you'll have this as well sitting there.
And this is honestly, like, if I had to pick, like, this is my favorite element about Tours of Duty that they decided to focus in on is the fact that what all of this revolves around is strengthening and honing and protecting and hoping that they don't die a bunch of units that would normally just be non-unique, but that you are sort of making them into pseudo-unique characters or units on your own, and like carrying them forward from mission to mission. They're going to get various bonuses, both small and large, that make the unit more effective or sometimes even less effective, which is a really interesting aspect of this. But that, yes, it's important to note that the core of Tours of Duty is really built around non-uniques. And that is to say, there is the ability to basically rent something like a Count Dooku or a Wedge Antilles pilot for a mission, and you can spend these supply points to do that, and you can spend those in various different ways. We'll maybe talk about it a little bit. Not gonna try to be exhaustive for this. We're just trying to give people a big overview. But that those unique characters, the named ones, they're going to be showing up to help out in a similar way to the fact that they might show up to help out in an episode of a cartoon or what have you, but that after that, they're not like leveling up. They're not getting the special commendations. They already have their special commendations, right? Like, that's the thing that makes them a unique character. So Count Dooku might show up and zap a few dudes, but then he's going to be like, "I'll see you later unless you pay for me to be back next time." Whereas the army that's actually evolving and changing are all these various non-unique units, which includes members of all ranks, including vehicles, troopers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that as someone who was just building his register before starting this cast today, is that I have never looked so hard at all of the non-named units that I have.
Absolutely.
Because I play Hero Hammer rebels list, that I go with the named, and then I just slot in the cores and sleeper cells because like that's what you're supposed to do, and that's my army. But now I'm actually looking at it just going, okay, well, I have to use the non-named ones. B, when you add them into your register, you fill out their dossier. And so when you fill out their dossier, you have to give that unit a name, and you kind of give them a little bit of a story with that. And so then you're like, oh, this is like when you like do a Nuzlocke run in Pokemon, right? It's like you're starting to form an attachment with
whatever
this.
that is, man. I think I'm too old for that reference. I apologize.
No, it's a similar thing of like you're supposed to make an emotional attachment to this, and then it could permanently die. And so And so you're a little bit like, oh, I'm not just going to keep like throwing my sleeper cells out there because I want my sleeper cells to succeed and be able to get some of these experience points so they can get commendations, which give them nice little power-ups. And so I need them to not die, because if they do die inside of the battle, there's a chance that they will be taken off the register completely, and any experience or upgrades that they have will be gone.
Yep.
And then I've lost that thing that I've made an emotional attachment to. So I'm staring at some of those things while I'm building this list, and I'm just like, maybe I should bring the medic droid for once, because like I don't want all of my units to just die while getting the point. And it does kind of also bring that into your overall thought process when you're playing a mission against someone, like a normal game that you're doing against somebody with all of this, is you might be sitting there just being like, I can take this unit and get them all the way to the other side and contest that point. But if I die, I lose all of the experience, all of the whatever that I've poured into this unit.
If you have a level 4 sleeper cell, you're just gonna hide.
Yeah, I was like, I might be chilling in the back for a second.
The dossier it's basically like a character sheet, right? I mean, it's much smaller than that if you're comparing it to D&D, but it keeps track of how that unit has grown as time has gone on, and there is the possibility of permadeath. It's not like 1-to-1 in terms of if they die in the field that you're going to lose them forever. There's a dice roll, then there's also ways to mitigate that by spending your points. But there is the possibility that you could just lose that level 5 unit forever. Not your Paragon, though. That one, like your Paragon always stays alive, at least as far as I'm able to tell, because you always have to have one. And so I believe that there's not necessarily a mechanic for switching out Paragons. You would just like start a new story arc and a new campaign, new tour of duty if you wanted to change your Paragon around. But and that way it's kind of like XCOM for people that have played that, is that's a game where, you might have like a level 1 billion sniper, and if they die, you get really sad because I just invested so much work into that guy and now he's gone.
Yeah, if a unit dies, they have a potential of getting a setback. And if a Paragon is eliminated in the mission, they get what is called a defining trait.
Yeah,
which is
not always a good thing.
Yeah.
So I guess like setbacks are sort of it's almost like the bad version of a commendation. It's like it's basically saying you lived, but you're going to be carrying some scars around with you.
But at what cost?
Right, exactly. And then even beyond that, there is XP. We should mention that.
Yes.
That is given out in multiple different ways, and so like the reason why these Theater of War cards are so thick, both in the back and the front, is because there's a lot of different ways that you can get XP. There's like standard ways, but then there's mission specific ways, and I believe that there's some agenda specific ways. And so there's a lot of ways to get your level up. And so even if you are not winning games, like you're still going to be able to make your army better.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest ones of gaining experience, and the most experience that you can get, is your opponent out of each game will pick a unit that was the most feared unit, and that on the other team. And so your opponent will pick something of yours that they feared the most, and that unit gets 3 experience for playing that game.
Just for being scary.
Just for being scary. Yeah, and I think that's such a fun aspect of it as well, is that there's another level of something that like maybe my core unit was actively doing something good and getting like really good dice rolls out of it, and it's like, hey, go Rebel Troopers, like we're actually dealing some damage this time around, and that could be the most feared unit, and so it's like boom, they get 3 points right at the end, and so then they're closer to getting what is called a veteran rank, and so that's basically just kind of like their level, and so then they get different level ups from their veteran rank, and then that'll give them different commendations, and that gives them the stuff. And so that's just like a fun thing, that it's not always what you choose that you want to level up. There is a bit of randomness that maybe something else happens and you're like, oh hey, well I guess my Rebel Troopers are now gonna get some cool buffs that I wasn't expecting. Good for them. All right.
And like I think that if folks are tracking that you have this register, and then in that register is a bunch of quote unquote non-unique units that become unique via the dossier, the names you give them, and then of course also the various commendations and set packs that they earn, the experience they gain. But then on top of all that, we mentioned earlier about the idea that you can be temporarily recruiting a hero character or a unique upgrade into your list, and the way you do that is via these aid requests that do, like, these aid requests are, you spend this separate currency called supply points, and they can have multiple different effects, from just like increasing the available pool of stuff in your register, or it could be so that's a permanent thing, is increasing the size of your register. But then you can also choose to use an aid request to get what's called a strategic asset. And so an example of a strategic asset is like Captain Rex or Count Dooku, et cetera, et cetera. But then also you can do things like you can order a medevac. You can order for an ambulance to be nearby when the battle is going on. And then if you've ordered the medevac, then you get to basically save one unit from having to make a death saving throw at the end of the match. And so a lot of people who want to super duper protect that level 5 sleeper cell or whatever, they're probably going to be ordering a lot of medevacs. But you can also do an orbital bombardment to, like, at the start of an activation phase, just like lay down a bunch of suppression on one area of the battlefield. All sorts of fun stuff you can do, and the supply points give you a mix of some smaller permanent and some bigger temporary bonuses to your army.
Yeah, just to jump in on that, because I know that this was a very confusing thing on the Discord, and so just to be clear to people that are picking this up, your register has a number that is called a combat potential.
Yep.
And it starts at 600, and so the best list that you can start with is 600, and then you have this what is called active recruiting. It is an aid request that can increase that combat potential by 150, but that doesn't mean that you're always starting with your full that full number. So once you've taken it once, you now have a combat potential of 750, but that doesn't mean you're bringing 750 into the game. You are choosing with your opponent how much you are starting that game with. So you could have a combat potential of 1,000 and a bunch of options for you to be able to build your list, but you're only playing a 600-point game or a 700-point game, whatever you choose to do with your opponent. It is suggested inside of the rules that if you are doing 800 points and below, that you should do a recon-sized game and mission. If you are at 801 or above, that is when you should upgrade to a standard one. And it does look like all of the Turning Point missions will be standard, so you should probably build up to being able to have that. But that was just a pain point that a lot of people were confused by what that was happening and how that was working out. But yeah, like going back to your point on the aid requests and what you can do with all of these different points in the strategic assets, like I think this gives it the flavor. This feels like, to me, playing the original Galactic Conquest in Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. Yeah. Like this feels so much like that, of just like, oh, I've got some extra credits rolling around, let me get the back to
very much like that.
Yeah. And
I think mission specific bonuses that are global, and that you can sort of spend your cash on that, or you can, if you, I really think you need your hero character, then you can spend your cash on that instead.
Yeah, there's also, because of how this is developed, you'll also be spending those points on upgrades, being able to unlock upgrades for your units.
Yep.
And so that will also be part of it, as well as to get some of those added in there, not just through accommodations, but also through this. So that way it's like, hey, if you need that unit to have a very specific upgrade to be an effective thing, accommodations and this is how you're going to do it. I don't know what kind of unit you might need that for.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that at the end. You know, I'm saving the pepper for the very end. We should stick with the sugar for right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that's something else worth mentioning is that we've talked about turning points a couple times, but not really about what it represents. And basically, the way that I'm thinking about it is that the document isn't super duper specific about the way that you have to treat turning points per se, because I think that they wanted to give a little bit of freedom in terms of what they mean when you complete them. But I think that the general intent, the way that I'm planning to run it when I do my campaign, which we'll talk about at the end, is that a turning point is you have to earn the right, so to speak, to be able to use a turning point mission. And that involves basically like completing agenda points. Yes. In case we had mentioned already, the agenda that you choose per match is actually an additional battle card that exists per match. So on top of the primary, the secondary, and the advantage, the agenda is something that you're taking with you. And in my brief look at them, it seems like they usually aren't giving bonuses so much as they are like looking for certain things to happen during the battle, and if they happen, then you get these agenda points, and those are usually capped at a certain amount, so that you can't just like hoard 1 billion agenda points in one single battle. But once you get enough agendas built up, you can do this turning point mission, and it is essentially a mission that would complete the story arc one way or another. And I think you and your opponent will be able to decide how exactly you want to do that. I think that likely the way that I would run it would be that you would have to win your own turning point if you want to complete your own story arc. It's possible that would result in story arcs just like circling back on themselves too much. But I think that's something that players will be able to hone down. But I think it's meant to be the conclusion of a story arc generally. And they are, as Owen mentioned, they're different missions from anything else that you would ever play in Legion. And so they're meant to be a climactic special thing.
Yeah, just going as an example with Wipe Them Out, which is the Imperial turning point, the flavor text of this at the start is great, because it's like, hey, you've backed the rebels up into a corner. They're trying to escape. And so your objective in this setup is you have to destroy the rebel scum. And so you're trying to do that. And while you're attempting to like push in and do that, your opponent's objective during that is to literally evacuate their units out of there and try to flee. And for also just for those who haven't seen these and don't know, these aren't just a mission with objectives. This is also your secondary objectives and advantages. This
it's
is
the whole thing.
The whole shebang is all inside of these things to give it that narrative flavor and to give you this, to really make you feel that this is the climactic event of your narrative arc. And then, as Evan pointed out, once you have finished this in one way or another, there is going to be either a permanent buff that happens that you get this thing and you get this nice buff because you managed to win, or it's gonna be like, hey, you lost your climactic event and now you've got this drawback that's going to be affecting you for the next 2 games, and that's gonna sting. Like, that's gonna be a rough thing to deal with, and you're gonna be like, oh man, I went in too soon, I wasn't prepared enough, that next time around I gotta really make sure I got all my ducks in a row or something like that. So I think that's really neat. You will have to choose if you're doing a regular mission or if you're doing a turning point mission. If you've unlocked your turning point mission, you'll then talk to your opponent and just being like, hey, I've got mine, they might have theirs, but you can't do both of them at the same time, so you got to pick one or the other, and then that's going to be your thing for it, which I think is very cool.
Vague about the way that it's intentionally vague about the way that you would pick if you and your opponent have reached their turning point at the same time. There's probably going to be some standardized ways to make it as fair as possible that the community might come up with. Of course, you can always just roll a red dice or flip a coin or whatever, but there may be more interesting ways to get that figured out there that we just haven't thought of because this is literally like a day and a half old.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how the community is rallying behind this and how much stuff that, like, I think originally some people were saying that this was supposed to be a thing that you and one other person kind of do for your matches against each other several times in a row. But I have seen already the community trying to figure out how to do this as like an entire league.
There's ways to make league out of this for sure.
Yeah, and I think that makes it so much more fun is that I can play against 2 or 3 people, get my agendas going, but then I might then play my 4th match, and that could be someone who just completed their turning point, and so they might have, you know, they might have an army that's stronger than I've seen yet, and be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like, I you know, what's gonna happen now because I haven't seen that, or then I do my turning point mission, and then I get my buff or curse or whatever, and I'm like, oh no, now I have to like really like grind out a couple more matches inside of this league or whatever to be able to get back up. And so I think that's just going to be a really fun time and give people an excuse not just to be like, all right, I played my missions, I got my turning point, I'm done, I won my thing, goodbye, and like walk away. It would give you a reason to like, yeah, but don't you want to see what you earned? Don't you want to see what it does? Like, play a couple more matches, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. I think this will keep a lot of people engaged that would not necessarily have otherwise been engaged to the degree that they are, and I think that that's going to be really positive for the fun factor, which is of course why we should all be doing this. And then it's also, I think, positive for the ongoing health of the game, is that this is something that's going to keep people coming back. I wanted to mention briefly, like, these commendations, there's a billion of them. There's some that are trooper only, there's some that are vehicle only, there's some that are like special forces only, and then there's some that actually key off of each other. When there are some situations where a unit can even get high commendations, which is like a super form of a commendation, something like getting bounty on your special forces unit to make them headhunters. Like that's pretty cool. You could get born to lead on your generic commander, which is just giving them one step ahead, which is straight up one of the most powerful abilities in the game. So, you know, as you're like, the reason we talked about protecting those leveled up characters so much is that they can start to get bonuses that can really, really add up from a gameplay perspective, and make units that would have been like either sort of average or even fairly laughable. And I'm specifically thinking about the generic Wookiee commander for no reason in particular, but you can take that as a starting point and turn them into a character that you would normally like be expecting to pay 225 points for, but he's actually still going to be the same old point value for a base unit cost as he always was.
Yeah, I like these commendations can stack up and get scary depending on how you do it, what you're starting with, where it's going. I've already seen several people inside of the Legion Discord trying to figure out min-maxing of like what is the best unit to add an arsenal 1 to and things like that, and I'm just like, hey, I'm happy that I'm just going to be able to put scout or tactical on something that doesn't normally have it, and being like, oh hey, all right, let's see what tactical does on a rebel vets. Like, that seems like a fun thing that I'm gonna toy with. It's not gonna be broken, but it's at least cool to me, at least, that I was like, this is gonna be fun. Whereas, and then you can also have this other thing where it's like, all right, let's really start trying to break some stuff.
It makes me wonder, Rebel Vets moving as slow as they were, if they weren't doing it tactically before, then what the hell were they doing? If they didn't have the scopes up the entire time.
Look, there's a lot of snow, okay? It's just have you tried running through snow before? It's a lot.
Yeah, I guess they're rebels, so they can't afford like good boots, so they have to just like trudge through it with sneakers or whatever.
Yeah, it's just like towels that they've wrapped around their legs.
Yeah, welcome to the rebellion. Here's your towel. Let me run this one by Owen. So there's one called Field Modifications. This is a commendation that's for vehicles only. This unit increases its wound threshold by 1. And its break threshold by 1 if it has a break threshold. So one might look in this and go, oh, hey, yeah, my ATS to 12 health, that's pretty cool. But maybe look at it a different way and go, oh, my Aqua Droids are 4 health now?
Yeah.
Oh
which is
boy, I'm wondering if that
terrifying.
one's gonna actually get taken care of before too long. But that's sort of an extreme example. But these commendations can do crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. And then there's some that just give unhindered, which is not that crazy, and no one's ever gonna take it. But hey.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple that I looked at and I was like, I don't know if anyone is going to actively take this commendation, but they put it
Hey,
there
it's
because
there.
who knows, maybe that becomes more of a thing, and
Yeah.
that's more useful. You know, I am a year and some change into this journey, and so I tend to ignore a lot of things that are like, oh yeah, suppression, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. My units are dead before they're suppressed. I don't care. So I tend to ignore those, but like there's a bunch of stuff that either makes you more suppressive or like
Yep.
lets you be able to get rid of suppression better, or you know, any of these things that I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be useful. And like as we play through this, and especially as like going back to, hey, this is a cool excuse of we're going to be playing recon games. A bunch of us are going to start playing a lot of recon games, which I think is very cool, is that maybe suppression is very useful inside of recon games because you only have so many units out there. I don't know.
And you're all shooting each other immediately because it's a small battlefield.
Yeah, like I've never played recon games, so I don't know. So maybe some of these things that I'm currently just looking at these commendations and just being like, I'm never going to take it. Like, who cares? Like, these actually might be super useful when you're looking at something in a difference of like, okay, well, we're playing recon for some of these matches and not a normal standard 1,000-point game. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. This, like, again, it's bringing a reason for us to play in a field where we've never played before. And now I'm just like, well, this is kind of fun. Like, what are these like?
Tours of Duty is going to make me bust out my recon battle deck for the first time in a way that standard play only would have for me if I was doing a learn to play for a new player. Like, because, you know, for whatever it's worth, there might be a time where I become convinced that like the standard recon is something worth pursuing in like a tournament setting or things like that. But in this setting, it is to me much more interesting, and it does give you the freedom of whether like based on the army value per mission about whether you're going to do recon style or not. But yeah, like this is going to be making me consider that for the first time, if I'm just being honest with the world here. So Owen, I was wondering if maybe this would be a good opportunity for me to just like add a couple of flavor items to what's going on here. So if I was going to be writing a blog article about this, then what I would title it would be that this is a victory, a mystery, and a tragedy, right? And so the victory part is honestly the biggest part in the high 90s% in my opinion. I think this whole thing is really well designed. I think that there is so much potential both with what's already here and what's going to be there in the future that they, like I said earlier, they have an excellent skeleton that they're going to be building off of. So nothing but praise for the almost complete majority of this. The mystery part, there's a couple aspects of this. Number one is, how do battle forces factor into all of this? They're not called out in the document per se. I think that it is likely the reason for that is, in my opinion anyway, the fact that you are sort of creating your own battle force anyway via doing this, right? Like you're creating special units. The unit restrictions, I guess, are going to be. Actually, is that anywhere in the document? Like, does it define the unit restrictions per mission about whether those are different from standard at all, or do we just assume that it's the same as normal?
Yeah, there is no, other than when you first make your register, there are several things that talk about the units that you can bring in of. They can't be named. You have to have a Paragon. You have to have 2 core. Like these are all things, and if you ever lose your core, you have to always have 2 in your list. Like you have to bring them back and do that. But like that's all there really says in there. There's
Yeah.
been a lot of kind of like people wondering, and there's been some gray areas. I know I've seen a lot of questions over about Delta Squad, because you could have commandos. Commandos are not named, but Delta Squad is.
Right.
And so, like, flavorfully, I would look at that and be like, no, you can't have Delta Squad. Like, they're a named thing. This is not for
Delta
them.
should be a rental, I agree. Like, you
Yeah.
can make your regular commandos way better than Delta once they level up anyway, so why not just do that?
Yeah.
I would say that probably Delta would be the same as Inferno Squad or any other kind of unique unit. And so, and what the biggest item when we talk about this Battle Force thing is actually how does Shadow Collective fit into all this? Shadow Collective is a Battle Force that is very unique in the way that it has so many Battle Force only units, of course, but it is about to grow. It's about to get the Weequays and the Speeder Tank and Stavaja Press a little bit later on than those two things. So it's going to be closer to a faction, but that part is not specifically covered in here. In my opinion, Shadow Collective could be used with this. It would just be a little bit tougher. You would have fewer choices. But there are generics in Shadow Collective. It would be a little bit tough that you would have to start out with a 4 health Capo or Vigo as your Paragon.
Really, yeah.
It seems a little bit funky, but I think that there's going to be more information coming from the devs about like what the intent of that stuff is. Some of that may be information that comes from this very channel. I should mention that all I did was wonder openly about how we were going to cover this, which of course led to this conversation we're having right here. But out of nowhere, Will Schick appeared like a freaking ninja, and he said, hey, maybe we should talk about getting together between us and Michael Plummer and Will Pagani, who are the main designers of this. And so I said, sure. So we got some emails going back and forth. I am hoping that we're going to be able to get folks' questions answered directly sooner rather than later. But yeah, as of right now, that remains a mystery. Just like Owen, what is anti-materiel?
What is...
Because that's on a commendation.
Will could not say, which I think is the most fascinating thing, is he showed up on the Legion Discord and was like, I will answer any of your questions. And then everyone was like, what about that? And then he goes, I will answer any other of your questions. Like, immediately was like, I can't say. And then we even asked if there was a timeline of when we would find out. And he's like, I can't say that either. So there is this giant thing of, what is anti-material? A lot of us are thinking it might be some way of dealing with vehicles in some fashion or dealing with armor in some fashion. I would love something like that helps deal with that, or maybe something that can kind of do a weird pierce through shields or something, so that way you can't Katarn armor through it or something. I don't know. There's so many things it could be because we don't know what it is.
My guess is, the total guess by the way, my guess is that it is pierce that only works against vehicles, and that if you're shooting troopers, it does nothing. That would be the simplest one for me anyway.
Yeah, I think that you're correct, because it does already have impact with it.
Right.
And so normally that seems like a thing. It's like, well, what are you using impact for? You're using impact to try to get over armor. And so that's probably a hint. And I think that you're right that it's going to be something in that way. And we already have pierce, we have lethal. I don't see why we couldn't have anti-material to be a version of that specific to vehicles. So that'd be nice.
Yeah. I mean, that would certainly make the balance of power shift a little bit between troopers and vehicles, at least in this form. I'm assuming that anti-material is going to show up in some other unit, maybe even the speeder tank. That's going to be for Standard Legion, but I think for right now it was sort of an interesting early preview of a keyword that we hadn't seen yet. So we'll just have to see what anti-material is. Now, I want to get to the tragedy. Yeah,
I was going to say, what is the tragedy? Because you mentioned that there's tragedy, and I'm wondering where you see that this is going wrong.
So the tragedy is that when you recruit a new unit, it gives you some very strict stipulations about the sort of the opening array of upgrades that you can have for that unit, which specifically is that troopers can get both a heavy and a personnel made available to them. And that vehicles can get both a hard point and then any required upgrades assigned to this. So anything with the equip keyword, which is I think the easiest example is like a protocol for a spider droid. So it's not gonna not let you take a literally required upgrade. So that's gonna be on there. But then it also gives you an option for a hard point. So you can, if you're getting an X-34, then you can get the ion blaster with it. If you're getting a bus, then you can get the 6-dice gun with it. Stuff like that. Well, there's one unit called the Radagnas Fluttercraft. This beautiful specimen right here. Some lovely camouflage. One might wonder why would it need to have forest camo if it's up in the sky? The camo should probably be from people. I guess it's camo against ships that are higher than that. I wasn't exactly thinking about the tactical elements when I did the paint job.
I mean, there are a lot of airplanes that have camo on them.
Helicopters have camo, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of them that have camo because they blend into the ground, so they're harder to see when they're not in use.
Yeah,
it's not a poor decision. I see you. I see what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's my fortunate son, Fluttercraft. And so the thing with Fluttercraft, though, Owen, is that they don't have a hard point. They have a gunner. And that means that by the letter of the law in this document, you would actually have to spend a supply point right off the bat if you want to give your Fluttercraft anything other than the little dumb black-white pea shooter that the dang thing comes with. And I looked at every single vehicle in the game, Owen, because I'm crazy, just to see if anything else came close to being limited in such a way, and the answer is no. There are some vehicles that are like a little bit sad that they're missing out on other stuff. Like, the X-34 would love to have access to its astromech right off the bat, or all sorts of other stuff. But there's nothing that is turned into a nearly useless, speedy, zippy vehicle without that. So, listen, everybody makes mistakes, AMG. I just would humbly request that this mistake be rectified.
I mean, you could just spend one of your 5 special point. Your
I shouldn't have
points.
to, Owen. I shouldn't have to to make my unit usable. What about the Wookiees?
But how great would it feel once you have actually used some supply points into your Fluttercraft and actually, you gave it that extra oomph to make it scary?
It would feel like taxation without representation.
And
you live in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
You know all about that stuff.
We do. So true right now. But yes, you're right, and that does feel bad. I did see your complaint about this, and I looked at what I am putting into my register as a T-47, and I was like, oh man, do I not get a back gunner? And then I realized, nope, I still get my back gunner.
You can get the back gunner if you want. You don't even need that.
I don't even need it because that's not the best point of having a T-47. So I was like, oh no, this is real bad for you.
Hey, listen, I give AMG credit to just fix their mistakes, and that's all.
Yes, so it maybe somehow rectify that it is a required equip bombardier.
Yeah, it's like you can give a hard point to required equip, or if you're the Fluttercraft, you can get a gunner. But don't be giving gunners to X-34s just because the Fluttercraft need it. Okay, let's keep it real.
Yeah, I'm already going to see so many scary vehicles in this that are going to end up getting souped up and then just punching my face in. We don't need to buff them more. Just make the other ones work just as well.
Right, and let's be real again. Is that this Fluttercraft, even if they let me not have to pay extra for the super special version that I'm going to level up to level 5. My level 5 Fluttercraft is still going to die in one hit to the Arsenal 4 snail tank, and then I might lose it forever if I didn't invest in medevac. Medevac, it might not even work on vehicles, and then I'm really in trouble. I haven't looked at it that closely. So listen, they're going to die anyway. So just don't make me have to spend an extra supply point to use it, please.
I will let you know that medevac is for choose one unit in your army.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so I guess we're really talking about it's the pilots of of the Fluttercraft that are getting all the experience. It raises interesting questions about what medevac for a snail tank means, but maybe we just don't need to go there right now.
I love the idea of just seeing like a ship come down, just like pick up a snail tank and then just leave.
It's like an inverted snail tank, and it's like on its back, and it can't move back and forth anymore. And then this medevac chopper, it comes for that, and then it leaves the B1s just like burning in a pile on the side. You're not getting medevaced. You're replaceable.
Yeah, again, going back to the what are you going to try to save, what are you going to try to level up, and what are you going to try to risk is, you will have that, and it will just be like, yep, all right, all the B1s just full force straight in front, let them die, who cares? Like,
if I hear about anybody medevacing a B1, I'm going to be complaining about their authenticity to the canon.
But what if they're really good B1s? What if they're the most special B1s?
The only good clanker's a dead clanker.
Oh, we are coming out hot with these hot takes at the end of the podcast here. Yeah, like this is, like I said before, I'm very excited for this. I think in general this is just extremely exciting, and this is going to be such a fun way to play, and it's also giving us a lens at stuff we don't normally use or haven't thought about, like Fluttercraft and their upgrades, because
maybe you haven't thought about it.
Some of us haven't thought about Fluttercraft for a minute.
Sure.
And so, like, you're right. It is a thing that, like, they don't have the hard point. They don't have those things. And so you're like, well, their power comes from having the gunners and having these upgrades. And, like, how much are those upgrades actually worth? And I'd be very intrigued to see, as we play through these kind of things and playing through this, if we don't see some point changes for upgrades in the future, that I think that there might be a little bit of something here that they might be like, hey, you're right, like, everyone's taking this upgrade because it's super good and super cheap, and maybe we do need to actually, like, tweak it a little bit for not just the narrative campaigns for the Tours of Duty, but also for standard competitive Legion.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that, it's really gotten my gears turning about the fact that I think that there's relatively quickly going to be sites that pop up, and maybe it's even going to be in like Tabletop Admiral or something, that have an ability that you can log in and actually like save your dossiers and your register online so that you have a constant reference. And you could always like make a file or do pen and paper or whatever. But the thing that I hope at some point we can get to in the future is for AMG to be able to actually like collect data about the way that people play these games. Not only, mostly the best reason for that would be to try to make the standard rules of this more fun. This is the sort of thing where I don't think too many people are ever going to be getting all that fussed about balance, because it seems like everybody has access to pretty much everything. But it is one of those things where there are elements that may like limit or enhance the fun factor. And there are going to be all these games that are being played at people's houses or at game nights and stores without them being logged on Longshanks. And I do think that it would be fun to be in a situation where folks could actually collect data on this. That's for far in the future. This is all still very fresh, and we're going to be just getting our feet wet with it. But I think this has the potential to be something really, really awesome, and even central to the game in a way that, if we're just being honest, that in a way that both Recon and Spec Ops, I don't think we're ever going to be. I think that those are going to be sort of like doubles format where they're side things, and I think that this is really going to be the very visible little brother, so to speak, to the core way that Legion is played.
Oh, 100%. I think this is going to be the future of a lot of casual Legion.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for it. The fact that I, with no prompting, convinced Mike to play this. He's going to play a recon game of Legion. Like...
Yeah, and
I don't think you could.
He's going to hold his nose, and
that.
He's going to be like, "I'm doing this because I have to, because the register's not big enough. And as soon as it is big enough, we're going to get out of this recon zone." That's probably what he's going to say. But yeah, I mean, that's impressive in and of itself.
Yeah, like, Nutter Butters aside, this is I think so exciting to have that there, and to be able to just be like, yeah, like, we're playing a different kind of format of Legion. We're going to be messing around with something that isn't really played around with, and I think this was a great way to get new players, brand new players, newer players, people that have been here since day one, like get people together and actually like want to do this, because I think that people do, and it does seem like an interesting thing of just like, well, like, you play this to have the army to live that moment of like the Empire crushing the rebellion.
Yep.
Cool. Here's how to do it. And then you can really feel narratively as you're just like, all right, let's get them. Let's go. And like, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think that's going to be a huge thing to be able to kind of like live those moments of just like, all right, like let's have the Kashyyyk, defense against the CIS. Like that would be an amazing mission to have in there at some point. We don't have it now, but yeah, future. Hey, call me. I'll write stuff for you.
Yeah, and if you need advice on how to do a Fluttercraft, you can call me.
Yeah,
and yeah, we're available to anybody out there who's listening.
I work for cheap, so
yeah. I mean, we just want the game to be better and more fun. So listen, we're out there. Call us. It's funny that you mentioned trying this out with Mike, because I have a very special announcement to make.
Yeah, what's the special? You teased it. You teased us with the special announcement. What is it?
I'm not even sure if I told you yet. Have I, Owen?
No, I
yeah. Okay. All right, so this will be fresh for everybody. So first of all, if I move my huge head to the side, you'll see that there is there's a table back there.
Wow, look at that table. Look at all that terrain.
And then there's a bunch of terrain on top of it. And that table and that terrain are actually they're each a product of two sponsors that we have.
We have sponsors?
We do.
Woo!
They sent us some stuff, which we're very appreciative of, and starting with the next episode of Scoundrels is going to be incorporating all of the appropriate sponsorship materials, et cetera, but go ahead and shout it out now for free, so to speak, is that so Game Toppers is what made the table topper that turned my regular, not regulation size Legion table into a very much, actually it's actually a 6x4, and then I have some of our coveted sidebars on there in order to make it a 6x3. So that is like the aircraft grade aluminum black metal topper that's on top of that's keeping everything secure and weighed down. And then on top of that, we have all this terrain that's from Legion Terrain, which you can just Google Legion Terrain, and that I believe it's legionterrain.com if you want to be checking them out early. But we're going to be having some cool promo codes to get out there. It is in fact legionterrain.com. But that's a nice Hoth table, and we're going to be using those.
You're using those
in first of all, TFT minis to show some like visual stuff for teaching folks certain concepts that aren't very good when explained verbally. But maybe definitely more relevantly than that is that I have convinced somehow the current world champion of Star Wars Legion, Isaiah Wallace, who is in fact a local of mine, as folks might remember from previous casts, to play a campaign with me. And so we have the table, obviously. I'm getting the camera set up, figured out just right, and we're also waiting for all the details for customizable droids and Jedi to come out before we actually get started, because we're almost certainly going to start with me playing CIS and him playing GAR. But we're going to call it the champ versus the chump. Me, of course, being the one that's not the champ, and I think we're going to have a good time. I have all sorts of ideas, both good and bad, and also all of them are dumb, but I think that they're fun, and we're just going to have a good time. I am really excited for doing this.
That is very exciting news and very cool. Thank you to the sponsors. We appreciate you doing all of this and helping us get to this point. It really means a lot. And so you've got Notorious Scoundrels. We'll be doing more in-depth looks of several things, so be sure to catch it over there. You'll also have on the Fifth Trooper YouTube page, you'll have the champ versus the chumps, which sounds like you're going to probably
only one chump to start out with, but you know, maybe the list of chumps will grow. That there is only one champ after all.
Yeah, hey, if you need more chumps, I will volunteer and be very bad at it. So
all you got to do is move to the other Washington. When you get it
that sounds like maybe if we get some more sponsors, maybe if we get a couple more sponsors, that could happen. Yeah, so there will be that there as well, and if you want to have, like, I'm sure that Isaac and I are going to be talking here more about these campaigns as we play them and kind of get more of a feel for them because we're doing the casual thing. So keep it locked over here at the Fifth Trooper podcast for having more fun with all of that. Is there anything else that we want to announce or talk? Did we cover all our base? I think we got everything.
Yeah, TFT minis. We talked about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, TFT minis.
And then. I'm going to hold the details on this one for now just because, like, don't want to overload things too much. But there may be a certain painting video that's going to go up very soon from a new member of our crew. So I'm excited about a whole lot. The site's growing. This is the stuff that being a patron enables. So we really appreciate everybody's help. We're all just here to make stuff that people like and that is sometimes informative, but we have fun doing it, and we appreciate all the support.
Yeah, we love the support so much. The Patreon is the reason why I was able to join in and Isaac was able to join in. So like,
it funded the equipment that got you guys started. So
yeah,
like,
so
being put to use.
Yeah, so literally this is all helping us give you this level of content. And so if you want to keep seeing this content for Star Wars Legion, if you want to keep seeing that content from us about Star Wars Legion, please consider going over to the Patreon and tagging in and helping out where you can. And being part of this is a huge help. So thank you so much. Isaac will be back with me in a week or so here, and we will be talking about tournament prep like we had promised. So that episode will still be coming out. Don't you worry. We just had to make sure that we covered this since it was breaking, casual, and fun, and we wanted to make sure that everyone had a source to learn some of this news and get some hot takes from. So thank you so much for stopping by and being part of this. And we do it all for the love of the game. Catch you next time.
Bye.